What's going on, guys? Caesar Media here. In today's video, I'm gonna talk about one of the most asked questions on my Facebook, which is, what do you look for when you're purchasing an Evo? Now, before I begin my video today, I want to thank Team Evolution from Instagram for always sharing my Caesar Media posts on their Instagram page. If you have an Evo, if you want to see some Evo pictures, go check out Team Evolution from Instagram. And make sure to follow Caesar Media on Instagram as well. So it has become apparent that Evos, not just Evo 8s and 9s, but Evo 10s has been coming down in price, and it is more and more affordable to younger generation. And a lot of you guys are asking me, Caesar, as an Evo expert, what do you suggest I look for when I'm trying to buy an Evo? First advice for any of you is, do not buy your Evo at dealership, especially if it's been modified. And even if it's completely stock, or even if the dealership tells you that Evo is stock, and I don't mean Evo 8s or 9s, it also applies to 10s and 7s, or whatever Evo you're trying to buy, or in fact any kind of tuner car you're trying to buy. Don't go to dealerships because they don't know shit about these cars. If they tell you it's stock, okay, maybe it's stock, but stock could mean that it has bolt-ons that dealership is not aware of. Or maybe the car was 800, 900 horsepower fully built Evo that has turned into stock form and was traded into dealership because the chassis was clean. I know a lot of guys who had high horsepower Evo builds in the past have, so they want to try to get out of the Evo game. They want to try to ask 40,000, 50,000 for the Evo 8, which is 2003 and has like 100,000 miles. You're not gonna get that much money out of highly modified Evo. Of course, the money we put into our Evos doesn't always reflect the price of the vehicle. Like, for example, I spent $30,000 in my Evo. I'll probably sell it for $20,000 to $30,000 at the end of the day. So the car itself becomes free. So what a lot of people do with high horsepower Evos to get out of the game is they post their Evo components. So they'll post their fully built 4060C motor on Evolution M and ask stock Evo guys to trade their engine to them plus cash. So it's a win-win situation. The high horsepower guys are getting cash out of their high horsepower build. On top of that, they're getting stock motor that they're gonna just throw back into the Evo, and the cars like that is what ends up at dealerships. And most of the times, dealerships might think it's stock when it actually has done 6-second passes at the track. I think I need to do another video just on dealerships. Also, I like to go stealerships, but yeah, don't ever go to dealerships. And I'm not talking just tuner cars. Any car you buy, don't buy it from dealerships. You're just wasting money on expensive vehicles that you don't really know about. So that is my first suggestion. Go on evolutionm.net and look for Evos. Go on Craigslist, go on Facebook, on Evo group forums, and find your Evo. Do not go to dealerships. The first thing I was asked when I look for Evos is that, how was it used, right? Was it a daily driver? Was it a weekend fun car? Was it a race car? Was it like a drag car? That's the kind of question you want to ask, because the wear and tear on your Evo is going to be different depending on how it was used and the region where it comes from. You want to look at the VIN number and look at where the Evo was driven. In my case, my Evo came from Ohio and now it's in Michigan. I drove it in the winter maybe once or twice back when I used to daily it, and it does have rust. It's not bad, but it does have rust. If you look at Evos from like Florida or California, there's no rust. Those are the cars you particularly want to look for. Now, when I say it does have rust, it's not bad. It's just surface rust. You can just completely scrub that off and repaint over that. But if you see rust so bad to a point where it's actually like where bolts are not coming off, or if the subframe is starting to degrade, you want to stay away from that. Ask the owner where it's from, if there's any rust, and how it was used. I'm also going to cover in the future, should you buy a stock Evo, a built Evo, or Evo with bolt-ons? I think it's a discussion that deserves its own video, and I'll get into that in the future. But for today's video, I want to focus on what to look for, particularly when you're purchasing an Evo. And another thing you want to ask the owner, previous owner, is who tuned the car. Like I say in all my previous videos, tuning on these cars is extremely important. It will break or make the car, and make sure you understand who tuned the car if you're buying the car modified. All right, so let's talk about the car itself. What do you look for? In terms of exterior, it's pretty much the same as any other vehicle, not much different than what you'll be looking for on any typical cars. You just want to tap around and look at the paint to make sure that there was no damage on the vehicle itself. You wanna, in my case, my trunk is my wing is removed and it's being taped over and it's obvious, but you just want to go around, make sure nothing is bonded, nothing is heavily scratched. And also, if the dealership is telling you it's a stock Evo and you highly doubt that, or if the seller is telling you it's stock and you don't believe in it, one thing you can do also is just feel under the fender here in the back, because what people do, like in my case, you roll the fender out. You roll the fender to fit larger tires and lower the car, and this is an easy indication to tell whether the fender has been rolled. You just put your finger under it and see if it's rolled up. So down here it's rolled up by, if you are not familiar with that term, rolled up, the fender lip, these things, you see how it comes out horizontally right here? It should come out horizontally up here as well, but I have rolled it so that lip is actually tucked into the fender. And if that's rolled and people telling you it's stock, it's probably not a stock car, so be careful with that. In terms of interior, there isn't much you can look for in the back. When you come inside the vehicle, it will become apparent if the car was stock or is stock or was returned to stock by just paying closer attention to areas like here. Back in the days I had the ATI gauge pod with 2 gauges running here, and obviously he has some kind of setup. He might have wires just dangling off here. Obviously the center section here is common place to install gauges. So if it's a stock car, make sure that there's no scratches up here by the trim, where the trim meets the actual vehicle. See if there's any scratches of previous owners removing this piece here or the radio here. A-pillars, a lot of people put gauge on the A-pillars. Make sure there's no holes drilled in the A-pillar. That would indicate a aftermarket gauge that was previously installed. Make sure you open the glove box and go back behind it. That's where the stock ECU is located. If it's a heavily modified vehicle, it's most likely that the previous owner has gone aftermarket ECU, so that's also another indication of a heavily modified Evo return stock. You also want to look into the seats. Is it replaced? Look at the bolts that the seats are being held down to. Does it show sign of being replaced? Does the seatbelt look replaced? These are the things you want to look at when you're looking for an Evo, at least in stock form Evo, to see if it's been modified in the past. Now, interior wouldn't tell you much about the car itself, so what you really want to pay attention is under the car and under the hood, which I'm going to show you right now. Now, my Evo is probably one of the worst examples to show you what to look for on a stock Evo when you're purchasing it, because pretty much nothing on here is stock. But to be able to tell if the turbo was swapped and returned to stock, one of the easy indicators is to see if the radiator fans are damaged. If you look here, it's not heavily damaged, but it does have a couple bends in it. That's a good indication of, so for example, where the wastegate actuator is,
it's kind of a pain in the ass to get this turbo out with the radiator installed, and it's basically impossible not to scratch the radiator fence. I mean, this is not bad damage, but it's an indication of where previous owner might have put the wrench on in this area. So if it's got stock turbo and the bolts are looking like it's new or replaced, or it shows a sign of being wrenched on, maybe it's also an indication that the turbo was swapped. Now you want to look at your blow-off valve, intake, and all that component, and make sure that it is in stock form. Another thing I highly recommend is, actually don't worry about that, this is my engine pressure switch that I'm replacing right now. One thing you wanna absolutely do is compression test the engine. It's so easy to do. I have done video on this many times. You can get the compression tester from Advanced Auto, AutoZone, wherever your local auto parts store might be. You can rent it out for free, and all you have to do is really just pop this off, this ignition cover, and then pull the spark plugs off and run a compression test. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's so easy and stupid not to do that on Evos. You want to look for about 10% difference of PSI between each cylinder, and that should be good to go. And I say 10% because depending on the car and depending on the build, it might give you a different pressure range. So other than that, you just want to look around, look for scratches, look for bolts that might have been replaced, look for rust, and look for leaks, of course. And when you come front, make sure to check your intercooler, the bolt that holds the intercooler in place. A lot of people replace the stock intercooler with aftermarket, and the stock is so tiny. I mean, this thing is huge compared to stock. And yeah, also look at the intercooler piping that goes around, make sure that's stock as well. So next up, what you want to do is lift up the car and go under it. Okay, so what you wanna absolutely do is go under the car. If it's a dealership, which I keep telling you not to buy your Evo from, they must have a jack that you can put the car on. If it's a shop, if it's a private owner, you can take it to a local shop. If you don't have a jack to lift up the Evo and inspect under it, I highly suggest, or should I say it's mandatory, that you go under the Evo before you purchase it, because there could be some surprises. What I'm doing right now is actually using good old turbo towels to clean up my dolly there, because it's nice and dirty. Now Evos are sometimes high maintenance, and sometimes oil leak is just what happens to these cars. Maybe the guy selling you the car is low on money, just wants to get rid of it, and there's minor leaks, and he knows about it, he tells you about it. Cool, not a big problem. But if you find like a big puddle under the car that the owner didn't tell you about, or any other issues, sorry, I'm out of breath because I'm jacking up the Evo. If there's any other issues that you find that the owner didn't tell you about, basically what happened to me with the Skyline situation, stay away from the car. A lot of people told me that, you know, the differential leak is easy to fix, diff bushing is easy to fix, Caesar Media, why didn't you buy the Skyline? No, it's not about fixing the thing. It's about the principle that if you're a seller of a car in this closed community of tuner cars, you should tell the buyer what's wrong with the car. If he's hiding one thing, he's probably hiding 10 other things. So stay away from a car where you don't trust the seller. Alright, so I'm just jacking up the car here, coming on the side. I hope you can see this. Yeah, just look at the subframe, you know, just make sure there's no major rust happening. Like I said, there's some surface rust on my Evo. Nothing serious. I don't drive this on the winter time anyways, right? So what you want to do though is come around the rear here. Look at the rear sway bar, its linkage. You want to look at all the bolts, nuts and bolts, rust. If there's any damage, if there's any scratches. Now I highly hope you don't buy, or you're not trying to buy, an Evo that's been stanced out. But if there's any Evo that's been stanced out, you might see a scratch on the exhaust on the bottom, or like on the oil pan. It's up to you if you're buying a stance car or whatever you're into, but I'll stay away from cars like that. So, you know, here's a rear differential. Just take a look at it. make sure there's no leaks. Maybe going there, wiggle it. In my case, I have the bushing upgrade, which is yellow there. A couple surface rusts happening there, but it's just on the surface, as you can see. It'll come right off if I scratch that. No major problems here. So, just look for leaks, look for rust, look for anything loose. And also, when the car is up in the air on each corner, just wiggle that as hard as you can, because that'll tell you if there's any bushings that's worn out, or if there's a wheel bearing that's going out. So, after you check out on the rear, you want to come out to the front. So under the car, you'll be exposed to all the intercooler piping and T-case, transmission housing and all that. It seems like I might have a slight leak there somewhere, but nothing serious. But I just want to make sure there's no leak around the oil pan, which is this piece right here. You just want to make sure there's no leak anywhere, like this oil pan piece here. Make sure there's no leak between the gaskets. And just gonna inspect the whole thing. And again, you want to keep your eye out for rust. Like this here, I got a couple surface rust going on, but again, nothing that's structurally concerning. But make sure there's no rust going on. And again, make sure to shake the wheel and see that all the bushings are good to go and the wheel bearing are good to go. Now, if everything checks out, go for a drive. But here's the thing, here's a trick I like to do. Let the seller take the car for a spin real quick. When you're driving it, you're kind of focused on driving the car, and you tend to miss some issues that might be happening with the car when you're driving it. Whether it's vibration, whether it's noise coming from the car, you might be missing it because you're so focused on driving this awesome Evo that you're about to buy. So go for a ride as a passenger, and also take a look at how the driver drives the car. Is he letting the clutch out too slow? Is he changing the gears too slow? How's he driving? Is he like wide open throttle everywhere, driving like a dumbass? Those are the things you want to look out for when you're going for a ride with the seller. So a couple obvious things you want to check for is vibration during acceleration and braking. Make sure the car is driving straight. Take your hands off the steering wheel. Make sure it brakes straight. Make sure there's no vibration. I suggest you do a couple wide open throttles and make sure car behaves and does healthy pull, and brake the car as hard as possible. Well, I wouldn't say as hard as possible. Like do like 85%, 90% braking, and make sure that the steering is nice and straight when you're under high braking. Because if you need new rotors or brake pads, or if there's components on the bushing that may need replacement, the car might shake under braking. Take corners hard and fast, and make sure that the car is nice and solid. Now, one common issue with the Evos is the transfer case whine. Sometimes the transfer case fails and it makes the death whine. It's a common noise, and I'm sure if you look it up on YouTube, there will be tons of clips showing you what it sounds like. And make sure that you keep your ears open. Like in my Evo, I have the TRE upgraded diff, so the real diff makes a whining noise, which is common. But if you hear that from a diff and it's not upgraded, maybe you have an issue with the rear differential. So keep your ears open, and also put your gear in fifths and do a full throttle pull at 2500 RPM. So that's about it for today, guys. I don't have much else to say. If you do though, leave it in the comment section below and let people know, in addition to what I already said, what you should be looking for when you're purchasing an Evo 8s or 9s or even 10s. A lot of these issues will apply to 10s or any other junior vehicles out there. At the end of the day, I'm just doing this for the community. I'm just doing it so that my fellow Evo owners, especially those of you who are following my YouTube channel, that you guys do not get ripped off buying an Evo. I know a lot of my viewers do not own an Evo and looking forward to owning one someday, and congratulations to you. And I hate to see you pick up a car that's junk. And if it needs work, it needs to reflect the price. And speaking of getting ripped off, make sure to check out c0media.com for all your parts needs. Use a coupon code and save 15% off retail for all your Evo needs, or any Subaru parts that you may need as well on my website. So thanks again for checking out my video, guys. I hope it was helpful. And like I said, I'm gonna do another video series on the difference between buying a modified Evo versus buying a stock Evo and what you should go for. So
See you in that video, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Peace.